Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the first ever Super Make Something Live. Today we're going to be unboxing the SC-10 printer from Lotmaxx. The SC-10 is a new printer that's a derivative of the CR20.
Okay, hello everyone.
And I'm echoing. 1 second, please. Excellent. So as I was saying, the SC-10 is a new printer based on the CR20. And has both a power loss resume feature and filament runout detection. These are two features on my printer that I don't currently have, so I was interested in doing a review of this printer and thought that this would also be a good opportunity for my first live stream. So I think with the audio muted now, everything should be set to go, but since this is my first live stream, there may be some technical bumps still, so in case the stream gets interrupted for any reason, please stay tuned. I'll be right back. Also, if you have any questions about the printer or want to share any live stream tips as we go along here, please let me know in the chat, and I will answer those as we're building here. So I think those are all the housekeeping announcements I have. I see the chat is working. Mr. Wilson says good morning from Southern California. Good morning to you. And based on that, let's dig right in. Alrighty. So here's the box. It measures about 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters by 29 centimeters. It's pretty heavy, but overall, everything does seem to be quite well packed inside, which is nice. So what I will be doing here now is, let me just spin this guy around so we can see better. Then use this little box cutter here that I picked up from Harbor Freight for really cheap to open up the box. So I love these box cutters. They're basically on every one of my workbenches and near every one of the printers in my house. They're a great pickup for about, I don't know, 50 cents each. So definitely can never have enough of these around. So, all right, here we go. So opening the box right now. Let me also cut open this side here. Alrighty. Okay, and we see that there's a nice thick layer of foam on top of the printer right away. So suggests that everything is packed really nicely and that nothing was damaged in transit. Also opening this up, we have an instruction manual for the setup, as well as a nice box in here, which I'm going to guess includes various tools and such that we will need for the printer setup itself. So we're going to get into that in 1 second. Let's see. In addition to that, we also have a pretty nicely sized roll of white PLA. So that's actually really nice that they include that, so you can get started printing right away in case this is your first ever 3D printer. So that's fantastic. Digging a little bit further into this foam, let's find out here. Okay, so it looks like the printer itself already comes mostly assembled, which is really nice. So let me get this foam out of the way here real fast. Okay. And let me also at this point move the box onto the floor. Okay. And okay. And let's see. There is a cable that is already attached to the main base, so it does already come to, or seem to come also partially pre-wired, which is neat. So hopefully that'll make setup really quick and easy here. Okay. All right, before we take that out, actually, let's quickly just go over some of the tools that are in this box here. So we have our normal power cord, which is pretty standard. We have a little snip cutter, which is really nice, probably for both zip ties as well as being able to cut PLA off the spool in case you need to do that for any reason. We have one of these paint scrapers here, which you use to get the prints off the bed. So that's also really nice. One word about these is these are very sharp, so you have to be careful when you start to pry things off the bed, just because they could end up potentially hurting you quite severely. So Let's see. Then we also have the a metal piece here, which is a spool holder bracket as well as a spool holder itself. And then we have this tiny bag of additional tools here. And digging inside real quick. So we have one micro SD card reader and SD card. Then it actually looks like we have another one as well. So not quite sure what's on either of these, but certainly something that we can take a look at. Then we also have a USB cable that you can presumably use to plug the printer in directly to your PC. We have some zip ties for cable management. We have some M4 screws or bolts. And then we have, let's see here, a nozzle clearing tool, some wrenches, some replacement fittings, as well as a replacement nozzle here, so that's really neat. A screwdriver, some Allen keys, and some wrenches. So overall, pretty kind of standard stuff for what you get these days with a 3D printer. I really like how companies have started doing this because I remember when I got my first printer, it basically came in a kit without any tools and just the right amount of fasteners that you needed to actually assemble the unit. So to make sure that everything is ready to go and out of the box is certainly nice to see from companies, so people can get started printing really quickly. All right, so let me put all this stuff back in here real fast. We're going to need all of this later. Then let's actually put the unit on the table right now. So, let's see. I hope you guys are all having a good day. So I'm not quite sure what time it is for all of you watching at home. Here it's just about 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. So everything's good so far. All right, printer time. Let me lift this guy out of the box. Okay, here we go. All right. So this is the unit itself. And like I said, when you're taking this out of the box, be careful because it looks like the electronics are already somewhat pre-wired into the base right here. So, don't accidentally pull too hard and disconnect something. Let's see. What would be the best way to get this guy out? Should I cut it out? Should I? Maybe I can just lift it out here. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna throw this piece of foam on the floor real fast. Okay. And here is the overall unit. So there's also some protective film on the LCD screen, which is really nice. Actually, this LCD screen is a touch screen, which I also think is pretty cool. Let's see. Somebody's watching Dimple Poji at 10 p.m. Fantastic. I'm glad that everybody can tune in. So. Okay, so with that out of the way, let me quickly move this one camera around here so we can get a better view as I'm assembling. Yeah, trying my first time also in terms of streaming from OBS with a multi-camera setup. So that's actually also worked out surprisingly well so far, which is really exciting. That's certainly something I'm happy about. It seems to be working very smoothly. So in case you guys are interested in doing some live streaming yourself, also maybe consider checking out OBS. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So now that we have the camera repositioned, let's actually take a look on how this guy goes together. So opening up this instruction manual here, it says the first step to do is to install the gantry frame. So this guy onto the base. And besides that, and installing the spool holder and connecting the cables, those are actually the only 3 assembly steps. So that's actually really nice that they make it potentially that easy. So okay, let's do that now. So very carefully, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the base on its side like so. Oh. I do hear something moving around in there. Something I'll take a look at in a minute here. It might have just been the cable actually sliding back and forth. That might just be cables in there that are sliding back and forth. Looking at the bottom base here, it doesn't look like there's any loose nuts or missing nuts or anything from the case. So that's good. So okay, let's see. So we want to make sure that the print head faces forward, so basically faces the LCD screen. So it looks like this is the right orientation here. Okay. This one actually might be a little bit trickier than I thought. Let's see, because it looks like the gantry here is wider than the base itself. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually stand this guy up like so, and then I'm going to kind of scoot the base of the printer off my table edge here a little bit like this. Oh, careful that it doesn't fall. And then I think I at least want to get one bolt in to make sure that nothing can slip around or slide around. So I'm gonna go back to my included box of fasteners and tools here, and I'm looking into this guy. Gonna find the M4 bolts that I just had in here. Okay, here we go. And then also gonna grab the right Allen key. Open this guy up. Let's see here. All right, so they give you 4 of these with a washer as well, so that's nice. That way you don't end up over tightening or accidentally damaging your unit in some way. Okay, now I'm gonna go underneath here, and basically I'm gonna try to feel for where that opening is for that fastener. And I think once we have one in, then the rest should be much easier basically to put together. So okay, we got it, so that's nice. Very good. So don't quite tighten that all the way yet. I'm gonna do real quick here is change camera angles while I reposition I think the camera a little bit, just so you guys can see what that looks like underneath. So let me do that real fast. Move these tools out of the way. Okay. Move this guy forward to this edge of the table. And then just show you what I did in the other step, or in the previous step, so in case you guys are going to try to put on that first bolt in your gantry as well, that you'll be able to do that. So let me lower this camera that's not currently broadcasting live really quick. And then I'm going to point that up at the table like so. All right, that looks pretty reasonable from a camera angle perspective. Let me now switch back around here. Cool. All right. Yeah, this says, Dimple Poji says, this seems to be the latest design trend for printers in 2019. Yeah, it seems like a lot of these printers lately are based on kind of the Creality Ender 3-ish kind of setup. So this one, actually reading the bed size, seems to be a little bit larger than I thought. So this actually here says 250 by 250. I thought originally that it was 235 by 235, so that's actually really cool. But yeah, it does certainly seem that that design is really functional and seems to work really well. So a lot of these kind of styles of printers are really well reviewed, which is cool. So I've actually never owned one of these machines that kind of just has this one kind of exposed timing belt railing here. So I think that's kind of cool that it's a little bit more open frame and you can really kind of see what's going on in there. And also I guess it kind of helps to keep the cost down. So that's nice. One thing that I'm noticing here is that unlike some of the Wanhao printers or some of the other style printers, this one actually only has a single Z-axis lead screw. So I'm not sure if that's also the way it works for some of the Ender, Creality Ender 3 models. But definitely an interesting design choice. You know, as long as it's straight, I guess it should be good. I also noticed that there's no kind of top bearing though to constrain this kind of axis. So wondering if that'll introduce any wobble. Certainly something that we're going to test out here shortly. But yeah, kind of a clever design just because, you know, going single motor in the Z-axis as opposed to dual motor is certainly something that keeps the cost down and, you know, makes printers both cheaper to manufacture but then also cheaper to ship. So, you know, that brings down the overall cost of these printers. So that's kind of a nice thing, you know, to try to make it easy and affordable for people to, you know, try their hand at their first 3D printer. So, all right. So, swapping back over to that camera view. So let me just real quick put in that bolt or show you how I put in that bolt on the other side. So what I did is there is a hole kind of here at the bottom that you can kind of feel for. And then off of that then, you kind of gently guide it through this hole. Let's see. What is the best way to do that? Make sure I'm hitting the right hole here. Looks like maybe something is obstructing that a little bit. Hold on. Let me go around. Let's see. Trying it from this angle might be easier just because I can see inside. Let's see, is that? Okay, so nothing's obstructing that hole. I guess I'm just having a hard time getting in there and finding it. Okay. Well, I guess let me just tip it over. Now I do hear something moving in there. Wonder if I should open that up and take a peek inside here in a minute. Let's see. Okay. So that's also nice here on the underside. There's, I don't know if it's easy to see on video, but there's a bit of foam, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of nice to, again, make sure that you don't over tighten anything, which is always appreciated, definitely. Aha, okay, we are in. So let's see. Okay. I guess now that that's back, let me carefully switch camera angles here again. Pardon my reach while I switch my camera feed here in OBS. Okay, very good. And I'm just gonna hop around this corner right here. Whoop. I'm gonna go underneath. And then tighten this guy down. All right. again, because you're kind of trying to thread blindly here into this aluminum extrusion. Just have to be careful that everything is aligned correctly, and I guess in general, as with all these 3D printers and all these setups, it's good to go slow, good to take your time. So, alright, so that other screw is in. Okay, so now this should already be relatively tight. I'm gonna put in the other 2 bolts here that are on the underside. Switching back here. Okay. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna basically just flip this guy on its side real quick, since that axis is in there now already by those 2 bolts. Okay. Just like that. That guy in, no problem. Okay, that's 1. And number 2, let's see here. Something with this side is giving me a bit of trouble here. Just wonder if maybe, yeah, it's there. I think I'm just having a hard time just hitting it. I think maybe the foam is slightly misaligned with the hole, so it's no big deal. There we go. Just maybe on the other side, maybe the foam is aligned a little bit better, or maybe the clearance is a little bit better. But no problem at all. Okay. All right. What? Okay, so let's see. So it does sound like there's maybe like a loose nut in there or something. So in general, okay, I guess let's say this. So it's been about 20 minutes. Mechanically, the printer is already together, so that's super nice that it went that fast. At this point, we should usually be ready to go to start to plug in all the power cables, which we will do shortly. One thing I'm just curious about is when I pick up the printer and kind of jiggle it around a little bit, it does sound like there's like a loose screw in there or something that maybe came loose during shipping. So what I'm just going to do, and again, you probably do not have to do this when you actually receive your printer, but I'm just going to open that up real fast at the bottom just to see what's making all that noise. And that's actually a good opportunity too to maybe take a look at some of the internal control boards that they're using. So let me grab over here. One of my favorite tools that I use in almost all my builds is this 45-in-1 screwdriver set. So this basically has this has a bunch of interchangeable bits. Basically any type of screw or bolt that you could ever want, including these little tri-tip screws that Nintendo used on the original Game Boy, are in this set. So if you guys do any kind of assembly or DIY projects, definitely recommend picking this up, just because it's just so handy and so compact. You can, just keep it in your desk or throw it in your bag and take it with you. It's awesome. Definitely a great tool. Okay. Alrighty. So let us, just for fun here, open this guy up. So let's see. Gonna start by what kind of bolt is that in there for the feet? Maybe I don't have to take off the feet, actually. Let me try to not take off the feet first. Real quick, let's see how the live chat is going. Any activities? Yeah. Dallas Logos 3D Printing says most printers these days are 90% ready to go, and you just need to install these Z-axis and cables. So definitely a nice trend for 3D printers that we're seeing here in 2019. So, all right. That's the wrong bit. Okay, here we go. So let me open this guy up. Oops, drop that screw. Put them all very carefully on the table here. The other nice thing about this 45-in-1 screwdriver set is that it's got little compartments, so you could potentially use those also for some screws that you're taking during disassembly. I'm just going to put these on the table here for now, just because I don't want to kind of go fishing around in the compartments to try to find them. But in case of an emergency, if you need somewhere to put your screws kind of while you're in the middle of a build, that's certainly a viable option with that screwdriver set. So, okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, and okay, great, and 9. Okay. All right, so let us take a look. What could be sloshing around in here? Oh, opening this up. I mean, I have to say, well, let me put this camera up real fast. The electronics inside are very nicely organized, very clean. So that's really, really good. Here. Let me switch camera angles real fast. So here, looking inside, we see that we have our main control board with our stepper drivers here. So it looks like you have X, Y, Z, and the extruder, which makes sense. Here is also the micro SD card, so that's nice that it's all integrated. And it looks like here there's a custom PCB by Lotmaxx for the LCD touchscreen, so that's actually really cool. Another nice thing is, look at this. So this whole printer is aluminum extrusion. It's just that this base here is attached to this metal shell, but there's more aluminum extruded parts in there, so that's actually really neat as well to see. Okay, so I guess it was maybe just a cable jiggling around. I hear nothing to suggest that there's any loose fasteners or anything in here now, so, I wonder what that noise was. Very interesting. Let's see. Okay. Dimple Poji wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Prusa Mini? Yeah, so I have never actually used a Prusa myself before, but it does seem, so my coworker actually owns a full-size Prusa, and he's really happy with his unit. I think, these days a lot of 3D printers are relatively the same, I guess, in terms of design and setup. And I mean, most FDM printers, especially Cartesian FDM printers, work on the same principle. I think probably, comparing the price of the Prusa to some other printers, it really seems to be what you pay for there is one, quality control. So I think they basically make or they basically run all of their printers that they ship through this really rigorous quality control process. And then from my understanding, you also have kind of 24/7 live tech support. I'm not sure if that's for the lifetime of the printer or if that's for a certain time. But I think probably that's probably how they justify the price of the Prusa. My coworker, so when he brings some prints in to work that he's done on his machine, turn out really nicely. So you know, it definitely seems to be a capable machine as well. In terms of kind of first-hand experience, I guess I don't have much experience with that, so I can't comment on that. I've also never actually, knock on wood, had to use tech support for any of my printers that I've had. So yeah, I guess I don't really have too many thoughts on the Prusa Mini. It looks like a capable printer, but unfortunately not one that I have any experience with. So yeah, Prusa, if you're watching and would like to send me a machine to do an unboxing video, please feel free. Thanks. All right, so getting back to this, just gonna put the screws back in here. One here, and I'll also put one on the other side here. So in that way, everything is constrained in together. Overall, I have to really say I'm really impressed, both with this printer right now, in terms of cable organization and how clean it is. So everything seems to be really, really well constructed. And so it looks like at the moment, the printer is primarily available on GearBest. So I spoke with their representative over email briefly as we were arranging the printer shipment. And it says they are also looking to expand potentially to sell on Amazon, I believe. So, you know, in case you're interested in picking up one of these guys, what I'll do is right now I have the GearBest affiliate link in the video description below. But as this printer becomes available at more locations online, I'll be sure to update the link in the video description. And just a quick note, I guess all of the links in the video description are affiliate links. So in case you guys like what I do and want to kind of support these types of videos or some of my other project videos, all of those sales get me a bit of commission and kind of support my channel at no cost to you. So certainly you guys using an affiliate link is certainly always appreciated, just because it really helps the channel out. Alternatively, I mean, you also don't have to go and buy something from my affiliate links. It really helps if you guys like this video and then just share it with your friends. Certainly reaching a larger audience helps these kinds of videos be seen by more people, and that's always nice too, just because the more people watch, the more people hopefully get interested in 3D printing, and hopefully that grows the community. So okay, so those are in, and we are back. Okay, let me quickly switch streams again here. Boop. Okay, there we are. So that all looks good. Now it's time to connect the cables. So the best way to do that, I think, to show you guys, would be to probably flip this guy around. Oh, sorry. One other step here, looking at these installation instructions, actually. The next step is to install the spool holder and spool holder nuts. So let me do that real quick. Where did I put that box? Here it is. Okay, so we have this guy. And then we have another nut here. Okay, what I'm going to do is looks like one of these nuts just came a little bit loose during shipping. Not a problem. Because you want to keep these relatively loose until you're ready to slide everything in. And then after you do that, you want to go ahead and tighten everything up. So, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to insert the spool holder like so. Let's see, question on the chat. Are you planning on diving into 32-bit 3D printing? The Big Tree Tech seems to have popular boards. Yeah, so 32-bit 3D printing certainly seems to be very popular. I have to be honest, I don't quite know what improvement 32-bit printing gives over kind of the common setup that people use now. Again, certainly something I'd be interested in exploring, and might even be a good topic for a Super Make Something Basics video as well. So Super Make Something Basics is basically another type of video that I do on this channel, in case this is your guys' first time tuning in, where I try to take a technical topic and then explain it on the channel. So up until this live stream, those were primarily the two main types of videos that I produced on my channel. So one either being project videos, where I kind of walk you guys through a full build, and then a Super Make Something Basics video, where I try to explain a new technology. So maybe that's maybe the difference between kind of 32-bit printing and what's being done now is a good future topic. So definitely something that I will look into. Okay. Oops. Just make sure that this goes in correctly. Don't want to accidentally over tighten anything or strip any screws here. Okay. Okay, so finger tighten that. This guy on like so. Overall, I mean, I have to say too, the instructions for this printer for setup are also really clear. I mean, there's only 3 steps certainly, which helps, but picture-wise, I guess let me just show you kind of what that looks like. Let me switch streams real quick here. There. So like a nice instruction manual, really well laid out, some really nice pictures, and you don't even really need to read any of the text, which is nice. That's another actually feature of this printer that they advertised. This one printer firmware has support for a variety of languages, so printing a manual that's kind of more or less universal is also really nice, because then you only have to print one type of manual, and again that keeps the cost down, which is great, and passes the savings on to the 3D printing enthusiast that wants to buy the printer. So okay, so now we are installing the spool holder and nut here. Screw that guy on. So one thing that I really also like about this spool holder is that it seems to be longer than some of the spool holders that I've gotten with some of my other printers in the past. So let me check this guy up here real quick and go sideways. So this guy seems relatively long. If I hop on over quickly to one of my other printers here and take that nut off here, like this one that I got with one of my other printers is actually significantly shorter, and I've actually run into problems where some of the spools that I have of printer filament don't actually fit on this. So for some of my other printers, my first project was always printing a spool holder spool, I guess. And it's nice to see that here Lotmaxx includes the longer spool holder, just so that that doesn't have to be your first print. So that's nice. Okay, so it looks like mechanically at this point, we are all set up. So with that done, let us get into connecting some of the wires here. Yeah, so I think, shaking that around a little bit, that's just kind of the cable probably rubbing on the inside of the housing. So again, no loose parts. If you get a printer that comes like this, no cause for concern. Everything should be fine. Again, it looks like everything in there is nice and clean. So, okay, now getting ready to connect everything. It looks like wow. It looks like most things are already actually connected with the exception of one of the axes. So with the exception of the z-axis here. Oh, I see. So, okay. Well, now I know why I was having issues. Now I know why I was having issues getting that screw to fit here. Let me zoom in. So, my bad. Let me zoom down here. Let me tilt this camera down a little bit so you can see here and switch feeds. This is my mistake. So you see this ribbon cable here. I accidentally wedged that underneath the stepper motor plate while I was tightening down the z-axis. So, whoops. That would definitely explain why I was having such difficulty getting those guys to fit in. Let me undo that real fast, and then we can keep going. So, let's see. Let's see. On the live chat, it's asking here, does it use a dissolvable support filament? So this is actually a single extruder printer. So this one does not. That's definitely another thing that I'm very interested in exploring potentially in a Super Make Something Basics video, is to get my hands on a dual extrusion printer where I could then do things like print multiple colors or multiple materials, specifically using dissolvable filament, because I've seen some videos online where certainly those produce some really nice prints, and also I think dissolvable filament might go a long way to making FDM prints better match resin printing. So with resin printing, if you checked out my Ella Gumar's MSLA Super Make Something Basics video, the way it generates support structure is a little bit different than FDM printing, where in resin printing, it basically generates this tree structure that you can then cut off. And the effect of that is that it's really nice and clean. So with dissolvable filament, certainly I think for FDM printers, that could also help, because I know now whenever I try to design a file, I try to design it in such a way that I don't actually need to use supports, or I at least don't have any supports on any functional surfaces, just because I've always had kind of difficulty with removing supports, and then that sometimes ruins the surface finish a little bit. So dissolvable filament is definitely something that I'm excited about, and would definitely love to check into using multi-material printing with a dual extruder. So, okay, so we are back in business. Gonna plug this cable into the z-axis here. And now it looks like there is another cable that's hanging out. It looks like that's probably for the end stop. Yep, that's exactly what it is. So if you can see that right here, this is the board for the limit switch. So let's see if I can get that guy in there without having to tip the printer. Come on. Yes. It's also really nice, I think, that they kind of made all of these cables just the right size. so that you can't accidentally, plug a limit switch connector into a stepper motor connector. That's really nice. So again, setup seems to be really nice and easy, and really impressed right now by the ease of setup. Okay, so like I said, a lot of the cables already came attached to their stepper motors and to their limit switches. So I really only had to connect that one cable. And I think that's done. Okay, one other note, depending on what region you're in, if I flip this around real quick, because these are made both for 110 and 230 volts, and actually that's what the sticker is for here, you want to make sure that you are set to the correct voltage. So right now, from the factory, it looks like it comes at 230. Let me switch that over to 115. So now we should be ready to plug the printer in. And I think that's actually really nice that they include this sticker, just because that's not something that was present on my Ender 5 that I received from Creality. So it's nice to have that reminder just to make sure that the voltage is set correctly, because you don't accidentally want to blow out your board or something the first time you turn the printer on. So that's great. Excellent. Okay. Flip this guy back around like so. Nice. And here we are. Now the best part that some people really seem to enjoy is taking off the clear plastic. Certainly I like that as well. Always feels good to take the protective sheet off of a new electronic gadget. Okay, so now it looks like here the power cable is on the side along with the power switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the printer off to the edge of my desk like so. And then what I'll do is, let's see, am I going to get lucky, and is that going to be long enough to reach the outlet behind me is the question. Survey says yes it is. Okay, excellent. So that's plugged in. Just have to be sure that I don't accidentally end up tripping over anything. Let me also fix that camera angle, because I had moved it up previously when we adjusted, or when I showed you guys the spool holder there. Oops. Okay, straighten that guy out of it. Okay. So, moment of truth, I guess. Let us turn this printer on and see what happens. The fans are on. It's alive. It just beeped. Looks like that was a good beep. It says ready print. Sweet. Excellent. Okay. Let's do one other quick thing here. Let me show you guys the touch screen. Since that's, I think, a relatively novel feature for 3D printers, at least current 3D printers. That got over. Let's see. Let me switch feeds again so you can see that more easily. So that is what the printer interface looks like right there. Okay, now let's just try to move something. So touching move. Now let me push Z+. Okay. So you can see that the printer is slowly moving upward when I press that button. So that's nice. So that seems to be working well. There don't seem to be any cable snags or anything like that either, because it sounds like everything is going in there nicely. Okay. Let's see. Coming around here again. Okay. One quick thing also that also seems to be relatively, well, I guess becoming standard on all of these printers, is that they have a removable bed and also a flexible bed, which is potentially very nice. Let me just try to get under here. Try to get these binder clips off. Can be a bit tricky. So, all right, taking this off. So this is actually, I don't think, this is not a flexible bed. This is just a removable bed. It does have a little bit of flex on it, so that's probably enough to get underneath. So that's good to know. Unlike the Ender 5, it looks like this bed is not magnetic. So you do need these binder clips to keep everything in place. Just something to be aware of. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave them open, or in the open configuration like this, just because that way it'll be easier to get off later when I remove the bed to try to remove a print. That being said, though, I really like that this has a removable bed. I know some of my early printers, basically the bed was attached directly using this build tack-like surface, and that meant that you either kind of had to go in there and try to scrape it off, which ultimately always ended up kind of messing up your bed leveling, so that was kind of annoying back in the day where you had to go and kind of readjust everything, or you would have to do something like you would have to put like a glass bed or something on the print bed so that it was become removable. So it's really nice to see that this removable bed feature is now becoming more standard, so that's excellent. Okay, so let us do a test print, and to start off with, let us load this filament. So for this test here, I'm going to be using this Hatchbox yellow PLA. I always like printing with PLA and definitely recommend that, you know, if you're just starting out with 3D printing, this is kind of what you start with. And yellow, just because it matches the Super Make Something logo color really well. So let's see. So put this guy on like this, and then, so it looks like, so right here is this filament runout detection, and it looks like there is some kind of optical sensor in here that basically checks to see if there's material in here, and if that's not true, I guess the way it works is it throws kind of an error signal, and then that pauses printing. So let me swing around actually here so you can see this kind of extrusion setup. And let me move the camera up again a little bit so you can see better. Open, open 1, 2, 3. So pointing that down. Let me show that to you guys. There. Okay, so this is what we're working with here. So this is the filament runout detection module, I guess you could say. Then here's the extruder. It feeds through, here's the extrusion motor. It feeds through this Bowden tube here into the kind of carriage assembly where you have a print head and then the print nozzle itself. So the first thing we should probably do is use the menu to preheat to some kind of reasonable PLA temperature. For this one, I found that 190°C works pretty well. So, you know, depending on what you're printing with, obviously that's gonna vary a little bit. But I guess, okay, so let's get this guy started. And we see that as I did that, this light here in the module came on, so that looks to mean that it does detect that there's filament inserted now, which is nice. Let's see. So extrusion. If you press extrusion in, let's see. Let me check the manual here really quick to see I'm going to actually move the motors. Let's see. So it says go to preheat, go to add. Okay, we can go to settings, filament, load. Okay, so let us do that. So on the menu here, on the touchscreen, going to the settings option, filament, load. Okay, and now what it's doing, just to spin that around real quick, it's actually automatically preheating the print nozzle to 200°C. So that's good. Seems to be a general purpose temperature. And what I'm assuming is that once it does that, it will then go ahead and basically, I guess, feed forward a certain amount until the filament starts extruding. So right now we're at 117, 121. The extruder's heating up pretty fast, which is nice. So that's good to see. Let's see. Okay, just checking the live stream to see if there are any more questions. Nope. Looks good. All right. I guess while this is heating up, if you guys have any other questions about this printer in particular or anything else, please let me know, and I'll try my best to answer it. Let's see. We're almost there. We're at 196, and it should start feeding here shortly, hopefully. Aha! It says heat completed. Please load filament to extruder and click confirm to start loading. I will do that. Okay, yep. And at this point, it is loaded. Okay, and I think, let's see, how do we extrude now? Continue feeding until you see filament come through the nozzle. Let's see. Certainly a lot of options here on this printer, which is nice. Definitely something I need to look into a little bit more. Okay, so it looks like here you can specify an extrusion distance on the touch screen. Then after that, you can hit in, and it looks like it'll load it for you. Let's see, I guess usually I'm more used to basically having the extruder options be part of the move menu, but, well, let's see. Okay. So the bed is not leveled yet, was one of the questions. One of the viewers had stepped away. We are going to do bed leveling next. Let's see. And what I'm going to do here, because this cable is relatively long, I'll just manually feed it a little bit until we get some filament coming out. Okay. Now let's see. Whoop. Okay. So it looks like I may have accidentally turned the extruder off. So let me see here how this goes. Let me turn the extruder back on. Okay, so now it's heating back up. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like here what they want you to do for feeding is actually do a manual feed with this printer, so that's okay. Alright, see when we're heated up here. We're at 173, 177, 181. Okay, so we're heating up quite nicely. Okay, oh yeah, and it looks like we can manually feed, and there is filament coming out, so that's great. Excellent. Okay, here I'll switch feeds here real quick so you can see a little bit better. So by pushing down on the lever and then just manually pushing through, you can manually feed until everything is coming out. Perfect. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to pull that off for a minute. What I'm going to do now is actually try to stop the preheat. So I do that by pushing on this button called close. It's basically a power switch. But again, while we're kind of configuring this printer, just to make sure that you know, you don't end up with a nozzle jam just because you kind of overmelt the plastic, overheat the plastic. So, okay. With that done, let us now level the bed. So there is a button on here basically that says leveling. And it says 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. So let me push 0.1. I'm assuming that's going to cause the printer to move in one direction. Okay. Let me also move the camera down so you can better see here. Okay, so that looks pretty level. The way you adjust the leveling here is through these knobs, which is actually kind of nice, because they're all like the Crealinator 5. They're actually quite large, so they're easy to go. Okay, or they're easy to reach, kind of as you're trying to get under there to make bed leveling adjustments. Okay, so it looks like this thing uses a 5-point leveling. It moves basically from one point to another, and what I will do here is I will basically use the standard paper leveling method here. So let me go grab a piece of paper real quick. Or better yet, let me just grab one of these post-it notes here because they're already relatively small. We'll cut to size. Okay, so holding this under here. Looks like that one might have been leveled a bit high. And then what I do is I kind of very common. I put a piece of paper under the nozzle, then adjust the bed and kind of wiggle the paper back and forth until it just becomes slightly trapped and you can feel a bit of tension as you're trying to move around. So 0.2 is level. Let's move on to 0.3. Wait till that goes down. Okay, so same thing with this side. And one of the things that I like to do, potentially, especially for a first print, which is really nice when you have kind of these big bed leveling knobs, is that as the first layer is going down on the first print that I make on a printer, and I'll go in and I'll just adjust those knobs on the fly before it actually starts printing the model, just to make sure that everything is nice nice and level and nice and tight. So that's kind of a little trick that you can use. Again, just being careful that once the printer is printing and everything is warm, not to accidentally burn yourself. So, okay, so this one already looks pretty good. Okay, and now 0.5. Here we go. And I bet what it's going to do is move right in the middle, just as a final verification, and it is doing that. Boop. Okay. As far as I can tell, that looks pretty good, pretty level. So let us now go ahead and print a first test model. So what I'm gonna do is I will switch to a desktop view here real quick. Let me quickly, oh, that's fine actually. Let me quickly change camera angles here. So welcome to my desktop. In preparation for this live stream, I've gone ahead, and let me quickly, let's see, let me move this logo out of the way here a little bit so you can see it better. I've gone ahead and I've installed a new version of Cura and already downloaded a 3D Benchy, which is the kind of typical test model that people build with. I do have a maker confession at this point. I've never actually printed a Benchy. I don't know if that makes me kind of different than other people that 3D print stuff, just because that's usually the first test model. But certainly, you know, that's an interesting thing to explore with this live stream as well. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to open up Ultimaker Cura 4.3. That's typically the print software that I use. I'll wait until that loads. And back here in the corner. Okay, and I think what I will do here is I will start off. So it says here a question, you're not going to print the files inside the SD card. I think I will print the files off the SD card eventually. I guess right now, just because this is a relatively new printer, in case people don't want to maybe use the software on the SD card, and they maybe want to use kind of the latest and greatest version of Cura. My thought here was to basically kind of walk through what it would look like to set up kind of the printer from stock in the latest Cura version. So then that way, in case anybody's interested in doing that, they can do that as well. What I'm assuming, and I'll verify this again a little bit later, is that the SD card probably contains some version of the printing software that comes with the printer, as well as some test models, and you know, we can certainly look into also printing those, and I will go ahead and print those, probably not in the live stream just because probably that'll take a while, but what I will do is I will print some of those models and then post kind of the results of those test prints on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, so you guys can see what models were included with the SD card. Okay, so this is a brand new, never before set up version of Ultimaker Cura. I'm going to click Get Started. Going to agree to their disclaimer here. Click Next. Okay, click Next. Then I will add a non-networked printer. And what I will do for this is I will go ahead and scroll down to the Creality preset because I don't think there will be a Lotmaxx preset here. HIJKL, looks like there is not a Lotmaxx preset yet at this time. But like I said, I was told that this printer is based off of the CR20, so I will go ahead and start with using that profile, and then what we can do is we can go and kind of fine-tune as that is running. So I'm going to click Next here. Now going to enter my printer dimensions, which are a little bit different. Let's see, the Lotmaxx manual itself I don't think gives any, let's see, do they? will go ahead. So the Lotmaxx, in case you are interested in using the Lotmaxx software, it actually does look like it comes with Cura 4.2. So relatively new, and it does actually look like it also has a profile in there for that, for this printer preloaded. So hopefully, I guess my hope is that what's going to happen in newer versions of Cura is that the Lotmaxx printer will also be added. So okay, so actually what I think I will do instead is I will go ahead and maybe just go ahead and use their software. Let me do that. So let me grab one of the SD cards that were included here. And yeah, let me just use their Lotmaxx software to set up the printer, and then what I'll do later is I'll go ahead and I'll grab that profile. So okay, I will take the SD card here and put it into my laptop because I don't actually have any free USB ports at the moment. Let's see, and it says here installing. This is the install guidebook, so this is where the manual is on the SD card. Let's see. Let me swap back to desktop view here. So on the SD card, it looks like it comes with a dog model. It comes with an installation guidebook. It comes with the actual Lotmaxx printer software and drivers. Then it also has a troubleshooting PDF, as well as both G-code for the dog and an STL file for the dog. And it looks like here maybe just that the G-code is on here twice. So yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go here, Lotmaxx, install Lotmaxx 4.2 for Windows 64-bit. Give that a second for it to boot. Yes, I would like to install this. Next. So yeah, it does look like this is also just a version of Cura, so not a problem. Cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cura. Right now, I actually haven't tried any other slicers, I think, besides Cura ever. I know a lot of people really like to use Simplify 3D also, so that's probably something that I'll look into in the future. If you guys have any kind of experience with Simplify 3D, please let me know in the chat. I'd love to be able to check that out and maybe try that slicer as well, just because it's kind of something different that I've never done before. So okay, all right. So it looks like we are finally installed. So I will run the Lotmaxx application. Let's see. Give it a minute here to boot. It shows up in my system tray. Okay, so here we are now with the Lotmaxx branded version of Cura. Get started, agree, next, add a non-network printer. That's really nice. When you first boot, it actually does already scroll down to the Lotmaxx menu options, so that actually does make setup really nice and easy. Clicking next. I'm not going to create an Ultimaker Cloud account right now. And I'm going to click finish. So, okay. Very easy. Very nice. So let me now go ahead and load the Benchy model that I had. Put that there in the middle of the build tray. There's Mr. Benchy. Looks very nice. Let me just also look at some of the print settings that Lotmaxx recommends. So layer height, 0.2%, infill 20%. No adhesion, that's probably fine for now. Support, I read online, again, this is my first Benchy, so I read online that you're not supposed to print Benchies with support, so I will not be doing that also, for build plate adhesion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it print probably a skirt. Then that way, what that'll allow me to do is, because this is the first print, as it's putting down that skirt, I can go ahead and then just kind of play with fine-tune the bed leveling just in case before it actually starts printing. Okay, so this looks good. I am now going to hit slice, which will slice the model. And then let me minimize this menu here. Then what I will do is I will swap streams so you can see this a little bit better. And then clicking preview, what we can see is, okay, we can see a layer by layer preview like this. And this is actually one of the really nice new things in Cura 4 that I've noticed. It will actually visualize the print moves for you as an animation. So that's kind of a neat little toolpath visualization that you usually see in something like a CNC machine, which is fun. So, okay, so that all looks good to me at the moment. So what I will do, real quick, let me just also check the temperature. So, what temperature is this printing at? I wonder. Okay. All right. Support, cooling, travel, speed, material. It'll be printing at 210. That's a little bit high for this PLA that I've noticed actually. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bump that down to 195. And then for the build plate temperature, I typically like to print at 60 C. So we're gonna do that also. I'm gonna reslice the model here really quick. Okay, and then I'm gonna save it to removable drive. And then I'm going to click the eject button like they recommend that you do. And then after that, I think we're basically ready to start printing at this point. So, let me see. I can get the SD card out of my computer. So I'm using an Asus ZenBook here as the main laptop for this stream, and the SD card reader, it's one of those small SD cards. It's really flush, which is really nice because it's really sleek, but it's sometimes hard to get the SD cards out. So, okay. So here we go. We are now going to plug in the SD card into the reader, which is located right here on the front. In that goes with a nice click. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go to printing. LSC10 3D Benchy, click it, and then it asks me, do I want to confirm this print? Confirm, and it's printing now. Oh, so that's actually really nice. So I thought, just a quick zoom in here, that this was a monochrome LCD screen, but it is actually, it looks like it's full color. So you can see kind of the Lotmaxx logo here, various statistics about the printer, so that's cool. You see here the bed is heating up 260 and it's doing so relatively quickly, which is nice. And you can see a bunch of information like where it is on the Z height, what the fan speed is, what your extruder temperature is. Interestingly, it looks like this firmware might support dual extrusions, so that's something I'll definitely look into in the future. And then here you also have elapsed time, so very nice. Alright, let me just zoom in here a little bit so you can see it better as it prints. There we go. Okay. So yeah, so far, really smooth print setup. Really seems to be a well-built printer. Really impressed so far. Both kind of with the hardware setup and actually how easy Lotmaxx makes it to actually get printing by including that software with a relatively new version of Cura, which you don't often get with a lot of printers. And everything's already pre-configured and good to go. So just checking the time now, since this live stream started, even with all the kind of like side exploration that we did in terms of looking at the electronics, the setup time for the entire unit was 1 hour and 20 minutes. So that was really, really fast, especially comparing it to some of my early kit printers where, you would sit for 6-7 hours or more to try to get everything together. So that's really nice that Lotmaxx does make it that easy. Okay, so the bed is getting nice and warm. That's great. Let's see. Alrighty. The bed is now at temperature. Well, it's at 50. Okay, it's now at temperature. The nozzle is now heating up to 195 C. Then after that, it should be ready to go and start printing. So like I said, what I'm going to do is basically just quickly fine-tune the bed leveling as necessary as it is putting down that skirt. So in that way, while it's putting down that skirt, I'll be able to basically make sure that when it starts to print the model, that everything will be nice and level and good to go. So that's like a little trick, I guess, that I like to use, is this dynamic bed leveling while it's printing kind of the initial skirt. So, all right, temperature is at 140, 145, 150, 157. It's getting there, almost there. Okay, we are at temperature and everything is starting to move. Let me just quickly grab this guy out of the way that was left over from my initial extrusion. It's now leveling. And we are off. Here we go. Oh, okay, so it's laying down one line on the side, which is nice, just to kind of clear the nozzle to make sure that there is nothing left over that could produce like hairs or anything like that. And we are printing. And it's off. And I gotta be honest, it doesn't even look like I need to touch the bed leveling at all. So their auto leveling wizard, the 5-point auto leveling that they had in there, actually worked really well. And it looks like the Benchy is off and running. The print speed is also very impressive. It's very fast, which is always nice to see. That the printer is capable of printing kind of at this high speed. Everything seems to be feeding well also, which is good. Let's see. So we are going excellent. So that's really impressive that their standard print profile seems to be really well tuned for this printer, and that, just giving it this brand new model that wasn't actually on the SD card seems to slice well and work well with the printing profile. So it looks like that's really printing well. That's really impressive. So okay, so we'll let that guy go a little bit. In the meantime, I guess while this guy gets started, do you guys have any questions? I'd be happy to, answer some questions if you guys have any. let's see, in the title screen. Let's see. Actually, let's see. Let's go back to the secondary camera for the primary camera for the time being. So. Okay, so that's really going. Excellent. Looks like it said this benchy will be done in an hour and 9 minutes. So everything, wow, I'm very, very impressed. Everything is coming out super smoothly, super cool. One other note, in terms of movement for this printer, it's really, really quiet. So of course, I mean, there's a little bit of fan noise, but in terms of the actual stepper motors, kind of going, making their usual sounds, it's relatively almost silent, which is really nice. I know, some people complain that kind of the electronic whirring and humming sometimes maybe bothers them a little bit, so that's also a nice thing to see. Let's see. So Super Ryan 14 says that when he first got his ANET A8 printer, it took 8 hours to set up. So yeah, definitely. It seems that this Lotmaxx machine and this style of printer in general, the setup is really nice, really easy, and really fast to really make it relatively error-free, unless of course you jam a cable accidentally underneath one of the stepper motors like we did here during the setup. But relatively quick, relatively easy for anybody to do, especially if they're new to printing, which is always important. And really allow people to get up and running very quickly with their first test print. So that's always nice to see. It says, Dimpo Poji comments, these printers should start looking into direct drive as well. That would definitely be cool to see. So I know there are definitely some direct drive printers. They seem to be less popular now than they used to be, which is interesting. I'm not really quite sure why the switch. I guess one of the things is it basically takes some of the weight off of the print head and really lowers the inertia of the print head, so that really allows you to kind of print extremely quickly. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why these printers have gone into like this Bowden style setup where the extrusion motor is actually not located on the print nozzle. So I see why they do it, but I do agree that, direct drive printers definitely have their advantages. So especially if you try to print kind of like more exotic filaments, like I know NinjaFlex, for example, almost requires a direct drive extruder, or at the very least, a very, very short Bowden tube. So, okay. Andrew Lewis asks, would you recommend this as a good first printer for a newbie? So I would have to say, kind of just based on this setup experience, this definitely seems like a really good first printer for somebody just getting into 3D printing. The setup mechanically was literally 4 bolts. The kind of wire connection setup in this case was only 2 connectors on the Z-axis because everything else came pre-connected. But at most would be plugging 6 cables in, and everything is really well labeled. And just from these initial test prints, or this initial test print, it looks like the standard profile that comes with the Lotmaxx actually works really, really well for slicing new models. So yeah, I would have to say, just based on that experience so far, definitely I would recommend the Lotmaxx as a first printer if you're just getting into it. And like I said, it also has some really nice features that any user kind of at any skill level probably would enjoy and would benefit from. One of that is, of course, again, being the filament runout detection, which is something new that I've never used before. And then it also has a power resume feature where, if you do have a power outage, you can then basically resume printing and not kind of waste the time that you have had while printing your model. So I definitely want to say that this is a good printer just based on this initial setup experience so far. Absolutely. It says here, let's see, one of the people in the chat here says that they were able to get TPU working on the Ender 2. That's interesting. I've actually also never printed in TPU before. One of the, I guess for me, mostly my projects on my YouTube channel are mostly kind of functional prints. So for example, on the shelf behind me here, which I can show you if I can just really quickly rearrange a camera. But most of my prints are essentially kind of functional prints that I use during my build project. So for example, if you guys had seen some of my previous project videos, I built an Alexa enabled smart light for my light switch that I can use so that my Amazon Echo can turn kind of my light switch on and off. Besides that, I use it to print a lot of enclosures. And most of my projects kind of live indoors, so I've never really had kind of the need to print kind of with like these more exotic materials. That being said, though, that's certainly something that I want to try. And I've also actually never owned a printer with an enclosure before. So I hear that's basically almost a requirement for being able to print with some of these materials. Even ABS, which was kind of the first really go-to printer filament back in the day, also requires an enclosure. So I know a lot of people also build enclosures for their printers. That's definitely something to look into as well. But certainly kind of very interested in trying all these things out. So okay, so while that's printing, just to show you guys some of the other prints that I've made that you can see on my channel. So my latest one was this giant Super Make Something logo sign that I felt was just nice to kind of spice up my background when I'm usually doing these video intros and outros, or I guess in this case also a live stream. Besides that, I also like to print kind of movie props. So for the latest Avengers movie, or I guess, well, the one before that, I had printed this 3D printed arc reactor to wear to a movie premiere. And then I also designed this circuit board here, which works off of a watch battery and uses a potentiometer that you can then use to adjust the brightness. Besides that, let's see some of the other things that I've made. Like I said before, this is an Alexa enabled light switch. So again, runs off of batteries. And the idea here is that you can basically use Velcro command strips to mount this over kind of your standard light switch. And then it uses a Node MCU microcontroller in order to basically turn your light switch on and off. So I like to make projects on my channel that are a mix of various different kinds of technologies. Most of them do involve 3D printing, just because it's such an easy way to basically manufacture things at home, compared to maybe like a CNC machine, which could be a bit messier. But certainly 3D printing, I think, is definitely a good technology for makers at home that want to kind of prototype their own stuff, or want to kind of experiment with building things. So in case you are new to the channel, definitely feel free to check out some of my other videos, as that's usually what the topic of my channel is, are these kind of like build videos that walk you through projects step by step, and then kind of make all of the code available also online. So in case that you want to reproduce something yourself, you can go ahead and then kind of use my files as either a starting point to modify the project that you're working on, or just recreate my project. And it's always fun to see when people go ahead and then try to build a project that I've built, and then kind of to see different versions of it and see what people do with it. So that's always exciting. On that note, actually, so next Saturday, if you're in the Cleveland area, the Cleveland Mini Maker Fair will be taking place at the Great Lakes Science Center. There, I'm actually going to premiere my latest project before it hits YouTube. So if you're local, be sure to come and check that out. I will say that it involves lots of 3D printing, some laser cutting, a Raspberry Pi, and computer vision. And it's physically the largest project that I've ever built on my channel. So if you're able to come by the Great Lakes Science Center next Saturday, November 2nd, definitely please stop by and say hi. I'm going to have some fun things to give away, like the Super Make Something bracelets here, as well as also some stickers. So in case you want to pick up some Super Make Something swag, definitely stop by, come by and say hi. And then also, if you're unable to make it to the Mini Maker Faire, definitely look for the project video on the project that I'll be showing off there relatively soon to hit YouTube as well. So. Also, if you guys ever have any build projects that you'd like to see, please get in touch with me either on one of the comments in my YouTube videos or on social media. I definitely like to hear kind of things that people would like to see being built, just because I see that a lot of my videos as kind of educational tools to really get people interested in a topic or to kind of get them started on various topics that they might be learning about. So if there's anything that you guys are ever interested in seeing me build, please let me know kind of via one of those means on social media, and then that's great. Also, one of the things, so a lot of times when people do try to build these projects, they have a lot of potentially questions, like if they run into kind of an area that they're unfamiliar with. Sometimes I will get emails about questions, and most of the times I will get kind of questions underneath the YouTube video. And if you guys do end up having questions kind of about a build specifically that's featured in a video, if you could share that question in a YouTube comment as opposed to via email, that would really help me out and kind of help the community out, because if you have the same question as somebody else, by posting it publicly on YouTube and being able to answer it there, somebody that might be able to kind of run into those same questions in the future can just scroll through the YouTube comments and then basically get the help that they need right away. Okay, so one of the recommendations here that I see for a project is 3D printing project or 32-bit printing project. So I'll definitely look into 32-bit printing for sure. So real quick now, let's check back in with how this benchy is doing. And that's actually looking pretty good. Let me really quickly readjust one of these lights here just so there's a little bit less reflection. Let's see, let me put this up. Comes through a little bit clearer now. Let's see. This camera has auto white balance, so sometimes it has a tendency to blow out the background a little bit. Not sure if that makes it any better or not. Maybe a little bit, I guess. So, but yeah, this benchy seems to be printing really well. Let's see, we're at 18% right now. It's laid down kind of all the stuff for the base. And again, I have to really say I'm really impressed by the speed of this printer. It's going really fast, especially for the standard profile, and it just no extrusion hiccups, no anything. So that's really nice. Let's see here. Okay. Looking through here to see if there's anything else interesting in the manual. So in the manual, it does actually also give some instructions both for resuming a stopped print because of kind of under extrusion or anything like that. So the resume feature is really well documented here in this manual. It also has this troubleshooting flowchart, which is really nice. So, in case you are running into a project, it gives you a nice place to start debugging by answering a bunch of yes or no questions, and that kind of leads you to solutions about how to fix them. And then, oh, wow, so this is actually really nice. On the last page of the manual, and let me actually also see if I can call this up from the files that were on the other flash drive. Let me see if I can plug that in real quick. And then I'll show you guys on my screen here. Hold on, let me plug in that SD card. Come on, little guy, in you go. Oop. Okay. So it looks like, I'd said before they had sent me 2 SD cards. It does look like both SD cards have the same content. So that's actually really convenient. They did that because I can print off of one of the SD cards here on my printer and show you guys the other one. So maybe that's why they did that. In case that was the reason, thank you. Lotmaxx, good thinking. Let me see here. Let me open up the user guide. Let's see. So on the USB drive, they actually give you kind of more detail about what each of these options do. So let me actually call that up for you guys also. Let's see. Here. So let's see. So in here, this is one of the user guides on the SD card, and in addition to kind of just walking you through the standard setup procedure, what's really nice is if you scroll down a little bit, they actually tell you what each of these options mean and what they do. So that's really convenient, I think, especially if you're new to 3D printing, because when you open some of these slicers, sometimes you just have so many options. And I could definitely see that could be overwhelming to someone that's not used to 3D printing, or really relatively new to the field. So this is really nice that they include this documentation to get people up and running quickly. But what I wanted to show you, let's see. Hold on. Oh, there's a question here. It says, that benchy is looking good. Prints fast too. What's the layer height? 0.2. Yes. So this benchy is printing at 0.2 millimeter layer height, and I agree. That benchy looks really good. That looks really, really nice. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like. Okay, so it looks like the print manual is a little bit different than what I have on kind of physically. I'm sorry. The print manual that they send with the printer is a little bit different than what's on the SD card. So I'm just going to hold this up to show you guys. One of the things that's on the last page here that's really impressive is they actually give you a wiring diagram for the printer control board. So that's really nice because, one, it tells you basically what all the connections are, so you don't have to go and probe something with a multimeter. But just in case there is something with your board or something that you need to troubleshoot, you can basically just go and kind of see kind of what you're working with and what connector you need to troubleshoot maybe to get up and running again. So that's really nice that they include this wiring diagram with the manual, and that's not something that I've seen a lot of other printer companies do. So A+ for serviceability and telling people kind of what's inside so that they can troubleshoot their own printer should something happen to go wrong. So that's awesome. Let's see. Heading back to the benchy. This is coming out very, very nicely. Wow, this definitely, so like I said, this is my first benchy, so this definitely sets the bar high for any future benchies that I'll print in the future. It's coming out really smoothly, so it kind of jumps back and forth between different printing sections. It has to print different things layer by layer. There's absolutely no stringing at all yet that I see whatsoever, which again suggests that this profile is really, 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 really well tuned. So that's really nice to see. Let's see. So that's going to keep going. Cool. Yeah, so it says here, one of the comments, it's impressive to have such a smooth start without any hiccups for the printer. I definitely agree. This was one of the smoothest printer setups that I've had in a while. So this is definitely in my top 3 printer setups, which I don't know if that means simply maybe that I'm getting better at setting up these printers, or more likely is the the setup flow and these machines are probably getting tuned better and better. This setup process was extremely simple. Also, my Elegumars resin printer that I had talked about previously, the setup there was also really nice and quick. And the Creality Ender 5 that I had in my last video, the setup was also really quick. So definitely easily within the top 3 easiest printer setups that I've ever done. And just, that speaks really well to the manufacturers of these printers that do a really good job with the engineering and quality control, and really take the time during the design phase to make sure that everything is set up very nicely, and kind of makes the setup experience as easy as possible, so that people can start doing what they want to do as quickly as possible, which is, of course, 3D printing their own cool custom models. So. Let's see. Also, one thing I've noticed, so, I initially said I was surprised that this only had one Z-axis lead screw, and that it wasn't kind of supported by an extra bearing or anything like that. Doesn't seem to be a problem at all. I'm basically noticing no Z-wobble or anything like that, which is excellent. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else that I can talk about while this Benchy is printing. If you guys, like I said, if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the stream, and I'm happy to answer those. So let me just check on the Benchy status really quickly. So it says here that the Benchy is 30% done. At this point, I think it's about to start printing the main kind of captain's area, I guess, of the boat. But this part of the print will be interesting because it's basically printing these long vertical pieces and has to jump between them, again, without any support. So in case there is any stringing or anything that we'll see, we would be starting to see it kind of at this portion of the print. Right now, though, I see none of that, so that's fantastic. Again, just a really well-tuned printer profile. So. And again, that the fact that this printer is so quiet is also something that I'm really, really impressed with so far. Another question: have I seen the AlphaWise U50 on GearBest? I have not. Definitely something I will look into, though. Definitely very impressed just how quickly 3D printing got so easily accessible to people interested in the topic, and just how many different types of 3D printers are out there now. So that's really nice to see that people that want to get into this hobby have various options to do so, and it's nice to see that there's so many different manufacturers now that compete to try to basically make printers better and better with each iteration. So that's great. Okay. We are getting relatively close to being done with the base. So question here in the live chat, it says, how is the Lotmaxx in comparison with the Ender 3 Pro? So I don't actually own an Ender 3 Pro. I do own an Ender 5 though. The Ender 5 is basically kind of a different configuration. So that one comes in a kind of a cube of aluminum extrusion, whereas this style printer, like the Lotmaxx and the Ender 3, I think is different. I think those two printers have relatively the same configuration with the single belt drive. That being said, I personally have not used the Ender 3 Pro, but I have read good things about it online. I will say, I guess comparing it to the Ender 5, the print quality seems very comparable to kind of this one. Of course, the one difference between the Lotmaxx here and the Ender 5 that I have is the build volume. So the Ender 5 has a slightly larger build volume, especially in the Z direction. But certainly, I think as a first printer for somebody that's looking to print larger items like maybe cosplay props or props that they see in movies, or maybe like full face masks, I think the print volume on the Lotmaxx here is definitely reasonable and definitely well sized for that. So if that's something that you're interested in terms of quality, this printer at the moment seems very good, and certainly the build area seems like it's big enough for most projects that you might want to tackle. So okay, one other thing that I guess that I haven't commented on here is that this printer in the Z-axis works a little bit differently than the printer that I used to use frequently, which was a Monoprice Maker Select i3, which was a Wanhao i3 clone. That printer had a dual Z-axis lead screw, whereas again this printer has a single Z-axis lead screw, but it uses wheels that actually travel along the slots in the aluminum extrusion to move up and down. So that's a really cool design feature. It seems to work really well. That's the first printer I have of this style that actually does that in the Z-axis. So the Ender 5 basically uses a single lead screw, but then uses a two linear shafts with bearings to move up and down. So it's cool to see that kind of this wheeled setup that printers typically use in the X and Y axis also works in the Z axis. So that's pretty interesting. Wow, this benchy here is really coming along quite nicely. Right now, I'm not seeing any cosmetic flaws whatsoever, which is really cool. Really impressive. Okay, and also thank you just for everyone right now that's tuned in, and for everyone that has tuned in. I know someone commented previously in the live stream chat that when we started, when it was 10 a.m. here where I'm sitting, it was 10 p.m. Where they are, so that means that's probably close to midnight right now. So thank you very much for sticking around as we set up this Lotmaxx printer. Hopefully it's been interesting to you, and you've learned something new. Okay, let's take a look at the percentage status of the benchy. It says now it's at 40%. And actually, that's one of the things that I wasn't sure of. If you guys have any insight into that, I'd be curious to know. What I feel like is sometimes if I have a printer with a large kind of base that tapers up as it continues printing, It basically the print progression indicator, so in terms of the percentage done, seems to accelerate. So I almost feel like instead of analyzing how close a print is to being done by looking at the overall length of the G code, I wonder almost if sometimes it just kind of counts the layers that it has, and then kind of as higher layers don't take as long to print, the print speeds up. If you guys have any insight into how it actually calculates the percent done for a given print, that's something I don't know that I would actually be very interested in learning if you guys have some insight about that to share. I guess another thing that I would be interested in too is, like I said, so this is my first live stream. So far, it seems to have gone pretty well. It still seems to be streaming, streaming okay, so that's good. But if you guys have any live stream suggestions, please let me know. Also, so this is really my first ever kind of official product unboxing and review video. If you guys like these kind of videos and you also like kind of this kind of live stream format for these kind of reviews, please let me know. If there's anything that you guys would like to see in the future for future unboxings or live streams, also please let me know. Definitely very interested to keep improving and get better and better. And again, just hope to get people into 3D printing more and have people excited about technology, just because I feel like these kinds of things are very good to know, and certainly if you can tie kind of learning something new to a hobby that you enjoy, it definitely makes learning more fun and interesting and exciting. So yeah, just looking at this bench sheet, it is coming out really, really nicely. No stringing so far whatsoever, which is really impressive. Okay, in terms of percent done, it looks like it is now at 49, so halfway. Okay, just quick here. It says live video feedback. Audio is a bit soft when viewing from the phone. On the laptop, there's no issue. Okay, that's a good point. I think what I'll try to do next time is also work on having a lapel mic, just so that the audio is consistent as I'm walking around. Right now, my audio setup is actually just using one of these blue snowball microphones that's just kind of parked on my desk, set into omnidirectional mode. So probably certainly as I'm moving around, going back and forth with the printer, probably that's the reason there's variable volume. So yeah, I think for next time what I'll look into is either getting a shotgun mic or a lapel mic that I can wear. My one concern, I guess, for this live stream with a lapel mic, since I only have battery-powered mics, I want to make sure that nothing ran out of battery and that we would lose audio basically kind of midway through the stream. But definitely a good point. Thank you very much for the feedback. Another comment here. I enjoyed your review of the Elego Mars. Very detailed and informative. Thank you. But I never covered the process of the machine cleanup after a print. Hints and tips on how to best go about it. Yes. So thank you. That's a that's a very good comment. For that video, I didn't want it to get too long, but you are right. I never covered actually how to clean the print bed in that video. So for me, the way I go about cleaning it is basically taking some isopropyl alcohol. Well, the first thing that I do is that on the Elego Mars, the bed has a little bit of a lip that makes pouring resin back into the bottle easier. So I bought these disposable filters that I can put directly on top of the resin bottle using a funnel. And then I can pour basically the unused resin and strain it through the funnel to keep out any kind of particles that could affect kind of the resin as it goes back into the bottle. And then I do two things to clean the Elego Mars resin reservoir. So the first thing is I take maybe an ounce or two of isopropyl alcohol, and what I'll do is I'll basically slosh that around, and then I will drain that into a different container, then use a paper towel with some more isopropyl alcohol to wipe that down as well. And then finally what I'll do is I'll give everything a water rinse. And I found that as long as you do that kind of immediately after a print, you can clean up very quickly and easily. Of course, one of the things I would ask is never kind of take that isopropyl alcohol and just pour it down the drain, just because it is uncured resin. So that either can be really bad for your drain system, but in general, just kind of putting it into the water. After that in a container, there's a couple things that I can do. Is one, I'll either just kind of soak that original isopropyl alcohol wash that I used with a paper towel and then just throw everything away. Another thing you could do potentially is to put it in the sun and let everything evaporate in that container. So that works. That being said, actually, yesterday I received a bottle of Elego's new water washable resin. I have not yet had a chance to try that out, but it's certainly something that I'll be posting results about on Instagram and Twitter in the next coming days. So it is water washable, so it kind of suggests that cleanup there would be a bit easier just because you don't need to do any extra steps with the isopropyl alcohol. How that works out, I will definitely let you guys know. And yeah, I will get back to you. And certainly in another video where I address or where I use the Elego Mars for a project, I'll also be sure to cover the cleanup process since I didn't do that in my original review video. Wow, this benchy is looking really, really good. There is literally zero stringing whatsoever, which is really nice. That's really impressive. benchy percentage are we at now? Let's see. We are at 62%. All right, we're getting there. Almost done. Very exciting. Certainly, this printer is setting the bar for how benchy should print and how well they work. So, in the future, when I do these types of videos, I'll definitely keep this guy around as a comparison, because it seems to be a really nice benchmark on, you know, how to, or what a nice benchy should look like, basically. All right, Dimple Poji asks, how often do you use your printers? I own a printer for about a year plus now and seldom print anything on them. Yeah, so I actually use printers relatively frequently, obviously for the YouTube channel, but also for work, where I do some prototyping work. So that's kind of how I originally kind of got into printing. I use them relatively frequently. Now I will say I think the types of printer that I choose definitely depends on the printing application that I need. So, you know, if I need something basically really quickly and it's not a part that gets kind of exposed to a lot of sun or anything like that, I'll usually use FDM printing. For anything that needs to be kind of have a nice surface finish or be really highly detailed, I usually end up using my resin printer for that. But yeah, I would say probably 90% of the printing that I do, you know, is either for these hobby projects or for something work related. Sometimes I'll print a part, you know, at home that I need for like a quick fix if something breaks, like a bracket or something like that, until I can run to the hardware store to go and get something. Yeah, so that's, you know, mostly my printer use there is mostly through these videos, but hey, I guess that's a good excuse to keep coming out with more project videos. So. So having never actually seen a benchy before in person, I'm actually surprised how tall they are. I was expecting a much smaller model, to be totally honest with you guys. But this is actually a really cool test print. And again, there's absolutely no stringing. So I'll show you guys this after the print finishes, but it looks like on the back of the benchy, there's basically like an angled hole that, you know, for a boat, I guess, is where you would put the flag as it's cruising. Usually 3D printers have a lot of trouble, especially FDM printers, have a lot of trouble printing very small holes. But, I mean, this hole here on the back of this benchy looks absolutely perfect. So this is, wow, I'm really impressed. Okay, now it's actually getting into some areas where it has to do some bridging. So bridging are parts of a print where it basically prints across two different walls without any support material in the middle. That also looks to be going quite well. It doesn't look like, again, there's no stringing. It doesn't look like it's having any problems connecting those two walls together. And it's even at these really thin surfaces where you would, you know, potentially typically get concerned kind of with print speed for these really small surfaces where it basically hits a very thin area again and again and again and again. It looks like it's handling that very, very well. So, comment here in the chat. It says, benchy stringing usually starts as the printer starts to print the windows or the arch. Okay, so if we are going to see any stringing, I guess we should see that shortly then. It looks like it is about to hit both of those sections. So we'll see what we end up with there. Okay, a new question on the chat. Do I have any plans to do Fusion 360 tutorials? Good question. So I think at the moment, um, it's something that I'm planning on just incorporating into project videos as I am making certain projects. So for example, I used Fusion 360 in a previous video where I designed a camera mount to clamp onto some PVC pipe for this webcam actually that I'm shooting part of the live stream with now. And that had some kind of basics on how to use Fusion, but certainly didn't cover all of the things that you can do in Fusion. If there is something that you're particularly interested in seeing, do please let me know, and I'll certainly either do a tutorial on that, or depending on what the question is, try to incorporate that into an upcoming project to kind of see how it's used in the context of a bigger build. Prior to, just a quick comment on Fusion. So prior to starting to use Fusion, I'm actually a relatively heavy SolidWorks user from work. SolidWorks obviously is kind of a standard for like a lot of mechanical design kind of work, but Fusion, I have to say, is really comparable. And obviously one of the nice things for hobbyists and makers is that you're basically able to use that software for free until you make over $100,000 using the software with a product that you designed on it. So in case anyone is interested in getting into Fusion 360 or 3D CAD modeling in general, so that you can make your own models instead of just having to go onto sites like Thingiverse, for example, to download models that other people make. I definitely recommend checking out Fusion 360. At first, it's a little maybe overwhelming, again, just because there's so many options and things that you can do within the software. But overall, it seems like it's a really good piece of software, especially for people to learn on as they want to try to make their own models. One of the other things that I have not yet explored that I really want to is that a lot of YouTube videos that I've seen online show that Fusion 360 also has CAM integration, so you can basically use it to generate toolpaths for CNC machines. That's something that I have not tried yet, and I guess I have a Shapeoko 2 CNC machine that I unfortunately have not used very much recently, but that's certainly something that I'm also interested in looking into. That being said, one of the other projects that I've been thinking about lately is to actually 3D print parts for a bigger CNC machine, because there are some parts potentially that I wanted to play around with milling out of either wood or aluminum. So obviously that's probably going to be part of a larger long-term build, but if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing, do please let me know, and it's definitely something that I'll continue to design and keep in the back of my head until I'm ready to start building and doing my next project. So, okay, we are now slowly approaching the window area, where one of the comments said that if we are going to see stringing, we're going to see it then. I see one teeny tiny little stringing hair, I guess from the bow of the ship to there, but it looks like that kind of happened a long time ago, relatively, within the print. And other than that, there's really, so far, again, been no stringing at all, which is incredible. And it looks like it's almost done with the arch. It looks like it's really ready to start bridging. So I feel like, if we were to have seen any stringing on this benchy, we would have probably seen it by now. But yeah, so far so good. No stringing at the moment. For the CNC that I was talking about, am I referring to the MP CNC, which I guess stands for Mostly Printed CNC? I don't unfortunately remember the YouTuber's name that built one of these, but I think it was called the Mostly Printed CNC. And I know, at least the video series that I saw, I guess there were one or two versions that this person had built using I think first kind of a Dremel rotary tool, and then eventually switching over to a router. So yeah, that might be the project that I'm thinking of. Wow, this Benchy is turning out really, really nicely. Just a quick note also again on Fusion. So looking behind me here, so that 3D printed sign was actually also done almost entirely in Fusion in terms of generating the actual 3D printed part files. And that was my latest project video where I reviewed the Creality Ender 5. So, you know, in case you're interested in some more Fusion 360 basics and how to take maybe a 2D sketch that you've made and maybe a vector editing program like Inkscape or something like that, and then using that to create a 3D model, definitely be sure to check out that video as well, because it walks through the whole process basically about how to go from vector art to 3D printed model, and then how to save out STL files and then import those into Cura, and do all those things that you need in order to generate a 3D printed model. I agree. So comment in the chat, the printer is really quiet and doesn't affect the audio at all. I agree. I mean, I've had some printers that make a horrendous noise, and this one is just really, 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 really quiet. So that's really impressive. I imagine probably the board, I guess I read, is like a quiet extrusion board also. Again, I don't have any personal experience with that, but certainly if this is one of those quiet boards that are now more common in printers, it definitely works as advertised because, you know, except for the fan, this printer really makes very, very little noise. Okay, so Benchy progress. It has now bridged the arch that it was printing on the main tall section, and again, no stringing whatsoever. I mean, this is incredibly clean. Wow, that is great. Okay, it's now doing another bridge move, so it just laid down the first two pieces that it's going to use for that bridge. Again, no extrusion problems. Everything looks to be going extremely well here. Let's see what percentage we're at right now with the print. We are at 85%, and we are an hour and 6 minutes in. So. Yeah, in terms of, so I know kind of with other printers back in the day, you know, one of the first things that you really needed to do with your printer is use your new printer to print a set of upgrades for that printer. So for example, with my Wanhao i3, it had a lot of Z-axis wobble. So what you would want to do is you'd want to print these initial kind of triangular braces that you could use to stabilize the printer. Just based on this print right now, at least from my initial impressions, I'm not really sure kind of what, if any, kind of required upgrades you would need for this printer. I mean, certainly I'm sure there's, you know, fun stuff that you can do, like print things to extend maybe the axes in one dimension or another. But certainly from like a stock functionality, this printer seems both really solidly built, and again, the Cura profile just seems incredibly well tuned for this printer. So big shout out to Lotmaxx for doing a great job on this guy. Okay, we are starting to print the roof of the Benchy. Very cool. Yeah, and I see no stringing whatsoever. I also see no distortion in the z-axis. So sometimes, you know, when you print a print, sometimes maybe one of your holes that you're printing ends up getting stretched, like the aspect ratio maybe sometimes is a bit off. This looks perfectly round. All the holes look absolutely great. And again, no stringing. Oh, and this is also interesting. So right now what it did is for the roof of the Benchy, it ends up printing essentially this this wall that looks like this, and then it has to bridge that entire roof. And that's actually quite a big gap for a printer. Sometimes, you know, you'll kind of get air gaps or something like that on the first layer. Just watching this go down now, all of the bridges are connecting. It looks like there are no air gaps whatsoever. So, nice job. Very good, Lotmaxx. This is really impressive. Okay, and it looks like it's starting on the second layer of the roof. Looks great, went down perfectly. It's now doing some roof infill. So yeah, we are in the home stretch. Just curious, what camera do you use for your videos is one of the questions in the chat. So I switch between a couple of different cameras. So right now I'm recording on two Logitech C920 Pro webcams, actually. And those are really nice because their autofocus is really, really nice. Then I also more recently have started shooting a lot on my iPhone, actually, because what I find is that shooting in 4K really helps when you're kind of just making videos by yourself, because that gives you a lot of room to basically crop the photo, or I'm sorry, crop the frame of the video in and out to really frame your shot really nicely. For shots that I want to have a little bit more depth of field, I have a Nikon D3100 DSLR. It's kind of an entry-level Nikon from about 8 or 9 years ago. One of the downsides to that camera is that even though the picture quality is really good, it doesn't have a monitor, and it doesn't have any autofocus while you're actually recording video. So in case you end up moving out of like the plane where it's focused on, kind of while you're speaking, it has a tendency to lose focus. So I usually reserve that camera for more kind of like static shots where I'm presenting like parts of a build or showing, like the tools, for example, that came with a printer. Right now, I'm actually looking to purchase a Sony A6400, which is the kind of Sony's, I guess, relatively new camera that came out last year. The thing that I like about that camera is that obviously it shoots 4K, so it again would make it really easy to crop video and frame shots because I'm recording by myself. It also has a monitor, which again kind of makes recording intros and outros relatively easy. And just based on what I saw online, the autofocus on that camera while it's recording video is crazy good. So hopefully, that would result in a really nice in focus video, I guess, for project. So something I'm saving up for at the moment. Hopefully, once I'm able to make that purchase for that camera, definitely look for it in future videos. But kind of with that being said, those are kind of the main 3 cameras that I use. Okay, the Benchy smokestack has now started to print. And one thing that I also didn't know about the Benchy is they said it was a stress test for the printer. I mean, this does look like a really difficult print and difficult model to print, just because I thought, a lot of the things were maybe flat surfaces for a printer, but it looks like actually all of these surfaces are angled. So that really forces the printer to do a lot of smaller moves and a lot of retractions. So that's really interesting to see. Again, I see no stringing whatsoever at the moment. I'm really impressed right now with how this Lotmaxx printer is handling printing this Benchy. Question, why not the Sony a6600? I think the a6400 does not have IBIS, which is in-body image stabilization. That's a good question. Right now, I think I'm trying to think there. I believe the 6600 is the newest camera. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But based on what I've seen, people said, I guess from at least early reviews, that IBIS doesn't do very much. Considering the price upgrade and kind of in terms of price right now, at least comparing an A6600 to the A6400, it's about 2/3 the price. So for something like that I would be using it for, which isn't necessarily a lot of vlogging shots where I walk around, most of my shots are generally shot on a tripod, either focusing on my face or something that I set kind of on a desk. I think for me personally, I don't necessarily know that I would have a lot of use, at least for the type of videos that I'm making at the moment for IBIS. And in terms of actual internals, so all of the Sony models, I think, seem to have the same basically lenses and same internal technologies with some features, disabled in firmware in some lower models. So I think for me, at least for what I would need the camera for right now, I think the A6400 is probably kind of the perfect match kind of for what I need to make these videos. All right, we are nearing the end of the Benchy. Here we go with the smokestack. And we are almost done, guys. This is exciting. Let's see where we are percentage-wise. I have to imagine we're almost done here. We are at 98%. All right. Almost ready to show this guy off. Very cool. And we are done. All right. Very nice. Wow, let's take a look at that guy. All right, it's traveling outward to home the axis. Boom. And the benchy is finished. All right, let me center this guy a little bit better. Going this way. Wow, that is as close to a perfect benchy compared to some of the other ones that I've seen online that I've ever seen. So let's see. Let me go around here real quick and let me take off this bed. Again, so this is a removable bed, not a flexible bed, but maybe it has just enough flex where we can just kind of pop it off. Yep, okay. That came off relatively easily. Wow. And that is nice. So looking without any cleanup, zooming in here. Let me get this guy to focus. There we go. I mean, this is basically a perfect print. Looking here, look underneath too. The surface finish is nice. There's no blobbing. Again, really no stringing. Maybe one tiny hair that goes in between here, but I mean that's basically negligible. Wow, this is really impressive. Okay, so we have a new benchmark benchy that we can use for comparing all the other printers. This is really nice. This turned out really well. Wow. Okay, so final thoughts. The setup of this printer was great. It was really easy. The internal electronics are wired very nicely. The printer is extremely quiet. The initial profile that they give you with the printer is also very nice and well tuned. It's also nice that Lotmaxx, in their own rebranded version of Cura, ships a relatively new version, which is version 4.2, which is great. Besides that, I don't really have anything negative to say about this printer. I think it's well done. Certainly, if you guys are interested in a first 3D printer or maybe another 3D printer to add to your arsenal, I can definitely recommend this guy. If you are interested in picking one up, like I had said before, there is a link down below. Currently, it looks like the printer is only available at GearBest, but as the printer becomes available at other sites, I will certainly also add links to those to the video description below. Using those links definitely helps me out because they are affiliate links. It helps to support my channel. In case you guys are interested in supporting this channel, please feel free to use those, or alternatively, also feel free to just simply like and share this video or share this channel with your friends, just because the more people watch, the more it allows the channel to grow, and then the more I can make both these types of videos and project videos that hopefully teach people something new. In the meantime, I think that's all I have to say. Again, beautiful benchy. A big thank you to Lotmaxx for sending this printer for me to review. If you have any additional questions, I will be posting this video as just a standard YouTube video on my channel as well. So feel free to leave any comments that you have there, and I will certainly go back and answer those as you guys are watching this video. Let's see, trying to think if there's anything else at the moment. No, I just thank everyone that tuned in for watching, especially those of you where it's currently approaching 1 a.m. So thank you very much for sticking through this printer setup. And that's all for now. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Now go super make something.